The most controversial game in the eShop? Should that description be considered a prestigious one? Or is Sense a Cyberpunk Story just another game that exploits the shock factor in an attempt to rake in some dough? This is a game with flaws, but anyone that is open-minded enough to look a bit deeper than the semi-erotic art and character design on the surface will find a deep, well-crafted world filled with lore based on the Taoist culture twisted into a cyberpunk setting. Yes, twisted indeed. Sense a Cyberpunk Story is surprisingly at its worst during the initial hours, as it forces the player to solve small fetch quests and puzzles by way of lots of backtracking in order to advance the story. It's very similar to the mechanics in early survival horror outings, like Resident Evil 1 and Fatal Frame. The issue here is that it feels too constricting, and you will be able to determine what needs to be done well before you are actually able to execute it. Thankfully, after the initial mind-numbing wave of backtracking, the game begins to peel back key layers of the story that gives these mundane tasks a sense of meaning. At this same point, combat is introduced. Protagonist Mei is bestowed with a longsword that is capable of combating impure spirits. Combat is rather basic and obviously not meant to be a core component of the experience. Mei's more important goal is to collect necessary items in order to perform a Taoist ritual that allows the pure spirits to finally be at peace. The gravity of locating and interacting with the objects needed, backtracking or not, started to shift when the game began to reveal why the spirits were still lingering and unable to be at peace. If Sense deserves any controversy at all, this is where it should come from, as some of the spirits have incredibly dark and twisted pasts. You've been warned. Sense a Cyberpunk Ghost Story begins innocently enough as young Mei takes to the streets of 2083 Neo Hong Kong to meet up with a date. Something goes horribly wrong when Mei's cybernetic eye augmentations malfunction, and she is seemingly transported to a dilapidated and very haunted apartment building in 1983. In Mei's quest to escape, she meets multiple spirits of tortured souls that she must help ease over to the other side. In order to accomplish her goal, Mei utilizes Tao or Taoist rituals and is subsequently judged by spirits of dark and light herself. It can be complicated to understand, but it's important to note that Sense a Cyberpunk Story is deeply rooted in Eastern religion and philosophy. While Sense may be heavily influenced in Eastern religion, that doesn't mean that the concepts in play will be unfamiliar to the Western crowds. Dragon Ball fans should catch on to some of the themes involved with the judging of a spirit and even Mei herself as a person with a pure heart and what that could mean for the afterlife, just as Goku's story is based on a similar theme. The same could be said for those that might have been fans of the TV show Lost. Sense also features an ample amount of cyberpunk elements, though it doesn't fully blossom until very late in the story. Sense a Cyberpunk Ghost Story utilizes static backgrounds and grungy environments, much of which could pass for a PS1 launch game. That doesn't mean it's all generic, however. The game features gorgeous anime-inspired hand-drawn stills, and this is another area in which the game earns its M rating. Not only will you see some terrifyingly twisted ghosts that died after horrific tragedies, you will also see the erotic side of the game in these stills. I use the term erotic loosely as this is hardly the H word here, hentai, but a few of these cutscenes do reveal partial nudity. Sounds are a hit and miss in Sense a Cyberpunk Ghost Story. You'll hear recycled sound effects for footsteps, doorknobs, and sword swings. However, the scary sounds are quite unique and spooky. Ghosts make haunting sounds similar to crackling of static, and spirits will moan in anguish. The small team did an excellent job of setting up an unsettling atmosphere either way. The music also has a heavy Eastern influence, and it works well. Even when you're in the middle of a boss battle and expecting something a little more spooky, the wood pipes and strings set the mood adequately. Voice acting is surprisingly solid for an indie title as well. Mei and Mako's voice actors in particular do an excellent job of conveying emotions, although their respective lines are always short. Sense a Cyberpunk Story is a survival horror game at its core, and that's okay. While the absence of staple RPG elements were a bit disappointing, Mei's story as one of survival and discovering strength through being pure of heart instead of a combat prowess is arguably the true goal of the art of Suzaka set out to create. While Sense a Cyberpunk Story won't blow your mind with its gameplay, it will scare the hell out of you, tug at your heartstrings a bit, and leave you itching for more stories from Neo Hong Kong. And don't forget to visit SwitchRPG.com where you can find the full written review. The link will be in the description. And be sure to subscribe for more upcoming Nintendo Switch RPG news, reviews, and gameplay.